We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spirit, imagination and rich history of storytelling and humour that is an inspiration for all Australians.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bearer of Weird News. As always, I am your host and the suppository of all wisdom, Matt Harvey. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. This podcast is made possible by the continued stupidity and poor choicery of politicians. Without them constantly fucking up, I wouldn't have options for bullshit to spin into oral gold for you, like some sort of podcasting Rumpelstiltskin. So just a big shout out to them. As well as a continuous train of fucking up politicians, this is made possible by the generous support of loyal viewers / listeners like you, who continue to make this all possible through patreon.com. That's right, we have a little patreon.com for the Bearer of Weird News. It's patreon.com/Matt Harvey Stuff. If you'd like some bonus content, if you don't think you get enough bullshittery through this podcast, you get an extra story every episode. So go check that out. You can catch up on all the archive. However, of course, this is to say that all of this wouldn't be possible without our big sponsor. Yes, our big sponsor for this episode is International Day of Disability, which is an exciting one to nab. To celebrate, the government has unveiled its new automated NDIS planner, the first algorithm clinically diagnosed with apathy. It processes your plan with the compassion of a vending machine eating your coins, or of a government worker writing a letter to ask if you still have MS or if that limb of yours has grown back. We finally found a way to streamline NDIS support, and that is simply remove the support aspect. Automated NDIS plans. They're sleek, they're modern, they reject applications 30% faster than a human ever could. Measurable outcomes guaranteed, though accuracy and usefulness may fluctuate from case to case. NDIS automated plans. Happy International Day of Disability! But truly, none of this would be possible, nor necessary, without my own live shows. So firstly, I'd like to thank everybody who came out to Albury and Canberra. Big shows out there. Albury, we just had a little gig in Albury, but Canberra was part of the Canberra Fringe, the very first Canberra Fringe. So if you took time out of your day to come and support some of the artists there, I would like to thank you very much. If you took time to support me, I would doubly like to thank you. I think you're doing especially good work and you should keep it up. But of course, I will be touring throughout 2026, starting in Bendigo on January 16th with the very first ever work-in-progress presentation of my brand new stand-up and storytelling show, Jokes About the Time That I Got Detained in America and Other Stories. I am very much looking forward to telling you some of these stories, to presenting a brand new show after many years on the road. I'm looking forward to it all, and I hope you enjoy it too. I will then be taking it to Adelaide for the Adelaide Fringe Festival from March 10th to 15th at Gluttony, a little venue there called the Piglet, so it's quite exciting to be at Gluttony. And Melbourne, I'll be doing a full run, or basically a full run, at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival from March 26th until April 19th, from Thursday till Monday only, so 2 days off a week, Thursday to Monday. There will be a great time to come out and check it out. I'll be developing the show as the festival goes on, but I feel like it's in a really good shape, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all of your responses to it. But until then, my friends, I will be the bearer of weird news. So let's start with the headlines. In the UK, 10 of 12 prisoners that were accidentally released in the past 3 weeks have been found, 2 of whom are still at large. Descriptions of the prisoners at large have been released, and people have been asked to keep an eye out for a Hispanic woman in a sort of like a long red coat and a hat, and a white man in a red and white striped jumper and beanie. jeans and carrying a walking stick. Speaking to the BBC, Justice Secretary David Lammy said there would always be a human error while prisoners were using a paper-based system, especially if they kept letting prisoners use scissors. So instead they'll be switching all prisoners over to rock-based tools because paper always beats rock. An immersive childcare course is giving students a taste of the real world, letting them learn alongside the sound of crying babies and the typical noises found in early year settings. These include tantrums and noisy play sessions, and every so often someone's toddler sneezes directly into their mouth. Just straight down there. It's a real visceral experience, but it is important that they learn. Teaching trainees the most vital skill of all of their entire career, pretending that everything is fine while being surrounded by chaos and covered in snot, just directly down your mouth. Ugh. Studies have found that listening to recorded tantrums is the perfect preparation for the real world, including children, public transport, and eventually they'll complete the training with recordings of parents demanding discounts on their fees. A husband and wife from Kazakhstan are alleged to have used a hidden camera and earpieces to fraudulently win nearly $1.2 million at an Australian casino. The pair have been charged with dishonestly obtaining a financial advantage and remain in custody. The casino was shocked to discover somebody else cheating more efficiently than them. Obtaining financial advantage dishonestly is exclusive to banks and casinos. We can't just let anybody do that. When asked about the matter, the casino said that if the couple wanted $1 million so badly, they should do it the old-fashioned way and set up some slot machines. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has married his partner of 5 years, Jodie Hayden, in a secret, private ceremony at the lodge. When asked later about the wedding, Albanese said the secrecy of the ceremony was necessary to show the Australian people his commitment to a complete lack of transparency in government. M&M has taken legal action against an Australian beachwear company called Swim Shady that sells portable beach umbrellas, swim bags and other beach accessories, saying its name is too similar to his trademarked rap pseudonym Slim Shady. A petition to cancel the trademark was filed by M&M, whose real name is Marshall Mathers III. Look, M&M, Slim Shady, Marshall Mathers. Mate, I think you have enough names there as it is. Do you really need to file a lawsuit for an identity that you yourself have killed? If I'm following all the law correctly, and please tell me if I'm not, I'm sure you will, Slim Shady is dead. You did a whole album about it. Not to mention that you ended your song, The Real Slim Shady, with the statement, "Guess there's a little Slim Shady in all of us. Let's all stand up." Apparently you didn't mean any of that bullshit, did you? So how is anyone supposed to take you seriously? We hate someone who forgets the law. I tell you that. We don't appreciate that around here. You look at Season 8 of Game of Thrones and you think about what you've done. Pauline Hanson was suspended from Senate for 7 days after members of Labour, Greens and the Crossbench voted to censor her over a repeat of her 2017 burqa stunt, where she wore the garment to, as she claims, highlight the mistreatment of women and the risk burqas pose to national security and how anyone could be in there, which she eloquently demonstrated by showing up to her highly secure workplace, showing her government-issued ID, and proceeding to sit in her appointed seat and acting in a way so distinct in Parliament that it could only have been Pauline Hanson. When reached for comment, opposition leader Susan Ley said she was just glad that somebody was fucking up enough to distract from her increasingly poor choices. The Liberal Party has agreed to scrap its commitment to reach net zero emissions by 2050, which was first set under the Morrison government. It would also repeal Labor's 2030 emissions reduction legislation, but fortunately would still remain within the Paris Agreement. Instead, what they've decided is they are going to roll out our new strategy of committing to net zero voters by 2050. When asked for comment, the Liberal Party said if they aren't going to win the election, they'll do everything that they can to make sure there isn't a country left to run. In a desperate attempt to attract the vote of the everyman, they did commit to powering cities with human-powered hamster wheels, to roll back Medicare, replacing it with leeches for all medical problems, and restarting the Emu War. Also, you'll be happy to hear that you'll be getting a Mad Max Thunderdome in every apocalyptic city by 2050. For those of you concerned about the Liberal Party dumping their net zero target, don't worry, this will actually achieve a carbon neutral future by killing off humans, the #1 cause of climate change. The Liberal Party formally dumped its net zero target because being shadow government is actually way more fun. You get paid well and you don't actually have to have any real responsibility at all. You just get to stand up there and say a bunch of things like, this government doesn't know what they're doing. It's a good time. The internet is very excited by the idea that we might just be living in a large computer simulation like the Matrix. But a new study about the structure of reality itself makes simulation impossible. See, their work shows that no computer, no matter how advanced, could ever reproduce the fundamental workings of the universe, suggesting that reality is built on a kind of understanding that cannot be reduced to computational rules or algorithms. You can read all about their findings in the journal of, oh, so wait, this is all real? Fuck. This is real? Fuck. Oh, no. Fuck. Why? Fuck. Why, scientists, did you have to take away our last hope? Why? It has a bulky title, but the articles are really interesting. Barnaby Joyce has formally resigned from the Nationals, ending his 20-year parliamentary career with the party, leaving the opposition and clearing the way for him to join right-wing minor party One Nation. That story again, Barnaby Joyce is about to find out just how hard it really is to raise two families when you don't have all of the benefits of being an MP, including their higher than average pay and all the potential deductions that they could get. Good luck with One Nation, you fuckhead. In what must seem like a strange choice, Trump has made Saudi Arabia a major defense ally. But, look, to be fair to him, he just heard a bunch of ringing endorsements from multiple big-name comedians, and you know how he is, he loves rich and famous people. And look, let's be honest, Saudi Arabia might just be one of the best choices for a defense ally, as you might remember they did pull off 9/11 that one time with pretty much no problems. But really, if we think about it, the reason Trump has named Saudi Arabia as his defense ally is that he has identified journalists as his biggest threat. An executive at Campbell's was recorded making racist comments and mocking the company's products as well as their customers, describing Campbell's as highly processed food, saying, I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer, and that the food was for poor people. Campbell's immediately fired the executive, citing that he was stupid enough to get caught saying the quiet part out loud, and that sort of short-sightedness wasn't suitable for a leadership position. That story again, Campbell's cans executive after he found himself in hot water, but there is no doubt that this is a pervasive attitude and is still simmering away underneath. No word yet on if he'll be getting any support payments. The Trump administration will collect data on crimes and human rights abuses committed by migrants to Australia as part of its global drive to combat mass migration, which it describes as an existential threat to Western civilization. Wait, hang on. Have you not thought this through? Migrant crime is the entire history of Western civilization. We rolled up to places, stole the land, and murdered a bunch of people. Those are crimes, my friend. Does he just want a complete printout of the history of white Australia? Because I guess we could give him that, but it feels like a waste of ink. And that's the end of the headlines, my friends, and now it's time to move on to the bigger news. First up, it is Vegemite news. Yes, that's right, Vegemite, or as it's known to most non-Australians. Ew, you eat that? Ew. Yes, we do. We do eat that. We eat it with pride, okay? It is a spread that serves both as an extension of our national identity and our favourite national prank, because nothing says national identity like a food that is used almost exclusively like a dare for foreigners. So it is with this cultural placement in mind that I ask you to consider joining me in supporting a convicted murderer serving a life sentence in Australia as he challenges a ban on prisoners consuming Vegemite. Cue the music, please. The country is becoming increasingly polarised. We find ourselves fighting over ideas of culture, tax spending, environmental issues, and of course, whether or not the pavlova is an Australian or a New Zealand dish. It's the Russell Crowe of food. It's from New Zealand, but we claim it as our own. But one thing that we can agree on, whether we eat it or not, Vegemite is better than Marmite, and it is an Australian right to have access to Vegemite, whether you are a murderer, a bushranger, or a landlord. So I need you to rise up and fight this injustice. It's unconstitutional. To quote a great Australian philosopher, it's the Constitution, it's Marbo, it's justice, it's law, it's divine. The prisoner in question is Andre McKechnie, a 54-year-old serving a life sentence for murder after he, at 23, stabbed to death a wealthy Gold Coast property developer, which, I say, should enable him to a bulk buy of Vegemite. A whole pallet just driven right up to his doorstep. All the Vegemite that he can eat. At 23, to take a property developer out of the game? Man, he was ahead of the game. Not only did he get rid of a property developer, an increasing species of parasite that has attached itself to the working class for sustenance, but a Queenslander from 1994, woof, they might have made some progress by voting in the Greens a lot, but they were only 2 years away from voting in Pauline Hanson, which is, I think, carte blanche for going out swinging and taking a few with you. So I salute this man, and I say, good luck to you, sir. If you're wondering why Vegemite is banned, that's a good question, attentive listener. If you're not wondering, you can do better next time. Seems state authorities say inmates may use the strong-smelling condiment to disguise contraband substances or brew alcohol behind bars. Yeah, apparently they think inmates are running a Michelin star speakeasy out of their yeast paste. Problems that are easily solved not by banning Vegemite, mind you, but by just not letting prisoners take it into their cells. I mean, how hard could it be? It could just live in the kitchen, and then they can have access to it when they get meals. It's not like he's going to be sitting in his cell eating it by the spoonful. That's what stupid people do when we lie to them for fun. And it'd be un-Australian to eat it like that, and therefore he wouldn't have a claim to culture. Which, given his old argument for wanting to access Vegemite, is that the ban denies him the right to enjoy his culture as an Australian, obviously he wouldn't be spooning it out of the jar like some sort of tourist or an American. He'll just eat it like an Australian. A thin spread on toast, eaten on the back of a custom-made desert vehicle while playing a flaming guitar. That's the Australian way. And just quickly, Corrections Victoria also says the spread can be used to brew alcohol? To brew alcohol, which, okay, look, first of all, no, it can't, because the yeast is dead, okay? Just so you know, the yeast in Vegemite, dead. It could never be turned into alcohol. But the claims that its powerful flavour and aroma interferes with narcotic detection dogs, that's great. That's a good thing. And I don't want to say that this is inspiring, but honestly, I didn't know that. And assuming that it is true, which I'm not sure that it is, just gives me a whole new love of Vegemite. I'm not looking to run a drug smuggling ring anytime soon, but if I were, it'd clearly be under the guise of a Vegemite importer. What's that, customs? Nothing to see here. It's just a truckload of patriotic stank. Thank you. The lawsuit was condemned by David Southwick, a member of the State Parliament. and Minister for the Police and Corrections for the opposition, saying Victorians are fed up with frivolous court cases that waste time and taxpayer money. Yeah, frivolous wasting of taxpayer money is exclusively for politicians and political work outsourced to consultants and the army and a couple other sources like the police, but not for prisoners. And I thought the opposition loved the army. Seems not. But here's the thing, you might not know this, that might seem like a non sequitur. Here's the thing, Vegemite has been helping Australians since World War II, which technically makes it a digger and an Anzac. Are you telling me that you're denying Australians access to the troops? People who get all upset about Australianness and the love of the troops, where's your culture war spirit? Where's your devotion to Australiana? Where's your school spirit? Where is the coalition when I need them to fight a culture war? You know, they're out here all year long fighting stupid culture wars, but here they are denying this one. Why aren't you backing the paste that backed the troops? You're trying to introduce a values test to this country and you haven't stepped in to defend Vegemite? Get fucked. You can get the fuck out of here. Actually, come to think of it, not supporting people who supported our troops is actually pretty on brand for the coalition. After all, when in power, they said that the Australian government will not be able to help all the Afghans who worked with and supported Australian troops in the wake of the Taliban's return to power. So I guess not supporting those who supported the troops is par for the course. Vegemite is such an icon that in 2022, Melbourne declared the smell of Vegemite wafting from the factory in Port Melbourne a significant aspect of the city's cultural heritage. And if it can be cultural heritage for a building's Vegemite fonts, then it can be cultural heritage for a man to eat Vegemite, even if that man is in prison for ridding the world of a property developer. Moving on now, it is AI news. AI is becoming an unwanted housemate. The one who never does the dishes insists on joining every conversation and keeps trying to sell you crypto. You know the one, you know who you are. All while increasingly becoming a cornerstone of its own bubble economy. AI has been the new NF bubble tea for a while now, with pop-up shops all over the internet. Everybody is making their own automated chatbots to avoid talking to customers. Bosses are using it so they don't have to employ staff, and people use AI to avoid thinking. Seems these days everybody wants a slice of the AI pie. There's more AI popping up than there was pie face stores in the 2010s. Even the Australian government has decided they are sick of thinking and have decided that they're going to build their own generative AI programs to write sensitive cabinet submissions or business cases as part of a major initiative to embed AI across the public service, despite the obvious concerns that the technology increasing risks of security and data breaches. The government is willing to take the risk on such an obvious honeypot because they are confident AI can replace human decision-making errors at scale. We've already seen a preview of how well an automated system can do this task when we used one to mass create errors for the robo-debt scandal, so I guess they're just sticking to what they know best. Now you might think that AI is incapable of replicating the kind of nuanced work that goes into creating government systems. But I want to assure you, AI is perfectly qualified to produce cabinet submissions, as it also has no consideration of consequences for the people that will be impacted. I thought that it would be obvious as we are now staring down the precipice of a possible future where the government will turn over large-scale decisions to AI. It felt self-evident to me. And this way, they can blame the robot for kicking you off essential support services rather than take the hit themselves. Not to mention, when it inevitably fucks up, we can continue the tradition of nobody in a position of power facing consequences because we can just blame the robot. So that's going to be fun for everybody. No more accountability, just a future where your Centrelink gets cancelled by Clippy using an LLM. Hey, looks like you're trying to survive on below poverty wages. Would you like me to make things infinitely harder with no pathway to recourse? Too late. I already did it while you were contemplating the horror of my question. What else can I do for you today? And they aren't just going to use any old AI service. Certainly not. Don't panic. Don't worry. They aren't complete morons. Certainly not. Finance Minister Katie Gallagher announced that the public service would build its own special AI program for government workers. How good? How good is that? From the people who brought you the failed NBN rollout and who failed to build a census website that could handle the amount of people who would be taking the census. And, as I mentioned, were responsible for robo-debt and who recently spent $96 million on a website for the weather. You know what, now that I think about it, given a history of failing to use technology effectively, the government using AI for cabinet decisions couldn't possibly result in classified information being handled worse than it was if it was handled by ministers. Given their track record, this might even be the safest place for classified documents, because they'll never get the system online long enough to leak anything out. Gallagher spruiked the benefits as being mostly around productivity as the justification for rolling out generative programs, which will mean with generative AI drafting cabinet papers, ministers will be freed up for more important work like figuring out their next major pork barrelling venture, securing their golden parachute, or investing in an industry that they refuse to make legislation about so that they can take a cushy job as a consultant when they reach their post-politics life. I'm not even sure why they need to build an AI system. If they wanted something that was heartless, inefficient, and prone to making costly mistakes, they've already got Centrelink. Though I thought the government was scared of AI. After all, earlier this very year, Australian ministers were warned against using DeepSeek, the Chinese-owned and run LLM, citing security concerns. Even US-made AI, such as those developed by OpenAI, have sparked privacy concerns regarding the use of personal data input into their chatbots to train AI models. But apparently, that panic magically disappears if it's our AI doing the spying. Only we get to spy on our own citizens. It's only okay if we use a true blue, dinky-die, fair dinkum AI. In this case, AI stands for Aussie Intelligence, oi, oi, oi. It uses words like crikey and struth and arvo with the correct cultural context. Under the government's new plan, federal bureaucrats will gain access to a ChatGPT-style artificial intelligence engine from 2026, which will be known as Gov AI Chat. And let me say, boring! Real fucking snooze fest of a name there. I know that you're the government, but come on, do better. If we're going to introduce this monstrosity into the public service, can we at least give it a better name? And we here at the Bearer of Weird News have been workshopping some names for this new Australian AI. So let me just run a few of them past you, see which ones we like. We've got Aussie, 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 AI, Bluey AI, Crike AI, Fair Go Bot, Skynet After Dark, Cole GPT, or, this one's a bit of a left field, but stay with me, Harold Bolt. Harold Bolt. Because it'll do a lot of bad shit, but we'll only know about it drowning us in AI slop. Harold Bolt. The Gov AI will be trained on government data to ensure accuracy, privacy, and compliance with public sector standards. So by promising the AI will only be trained on safe, non-sensitive data sets, like every Australian's MyGov history, I'm sure we'll get the best results. On the plus side, at least when AI hallucinates, it's not going to do it in the middle of a Sky News segment. It keeps all of its lies condensed on platform. If you're wondering why the government is considering AI for cabinet submissions, let me remind you, AI lies confidently and cannot be held accountable, which makes it a perfect cultural fit. In another horrifying and surprising announcement, government data will also be allowed on public AI platforms under the new framework. Departments will be required to appoint a Chief AI Officer whose role will include overseeing safe use, the integration of new tools, and training all staff to blame the AI for everything that ever goes wrong, and absolving the government of all responsibility going forward. Federal Public Service Minister Katie Gallagher said the APS can no longer ignore the significant impact AI is already having on day-to-day operations, and they want to ride that gravy train into the future. The government hopes the increased use of AI will improve efficiency, lift productivity, and ultimately reduce operating costs. After all, why pay PwC to use AI to make things up when we can build our own AI and let AI fuck up for less than half the price? See? That's how we're doing it. This is saving you tax dollars, my friends. And if you object to this, not only are you a Luddite, but you're obviously pro-wasting money. Now, remember, PwC has had to return a fraction of its unearned pay of the use of AI when generating a report about why the use of AI in government work is bad. A genuine thing that actually happened. So obviously, once they've built the AI and are implementing it, we will be making the government return a significant chunk of the money that they take to do their jobs, as they are now outsourcing it to AI. Which, if you remember from that report from earlier, is bad. It's weird because this is the same government who is obsessed with secrecy and is denying FOI requests at record rates. So at least now we know if we want government data, well, we'll be able to get it from a hacker on the dark web much faster and for less than paying for multiple FOI requests that'll just get rejected anyway. And we'll probably have more information than if they actually sent us an FOI request. So actually, I take it all back. This is much more efficient and way more effective. On a related note, it's now on to A-Island news. The Australian territory Christmas Island has become the centre of attention recently after Google signed a cloud deal with the Department of Defence and now plans to build a large AI data centre on Christmas Island. If you aren't sure, the island is famous for a few things. Its phosphorus mine, being the former site of a casino, the annual event where millions of red crabs move from the rainforest to the coast to breed and spawn for 6 weeks, usually between October and January, and being one of the many offshore locations where Australia has built immigration detention centres and was used until 2023, when it was presumably overrun by migrating crabs in a bout of irony worthy of an Alanis Morissette song. And of course, being the summer home of Santa Claus, the famous resident who gives the island its name. Google's plans for the data centre have not previously been reported, and many details, including its projected size, cost, and potential use, remain secret. But we shouldn't worry. No, this is the company who removed their previous motto, "Don't be evil," from their code of conduct. So that bodes well for building a giant data center on a Pacific island covered in crabs, like it's a Bond villain's secret volcano lair. I can't see any problems coming from that. So it is good and believable that Google has come out ahead of things and assured the public the new facility is very normal and never going to be a place where anything evil will ever happen ever. Certainly not. Military experts say that such a facility would be a valuable asset on the island, which is increasingly seen by defense officials as a critical frontline in monitoring Chinese submarines and other naval activity in the Indian Ocean. I don't know why we need to monitor Chinese activity so closely. It's not like we're trapped between our economic dependence on China and our desire to talk shit while hiding behind the US Marines like a drunk friend in a pub fight. That's definitely not true. That would be absurd. A Google spokesperson said, "We are not constructing a large artificial intelligence data center on Christmas Island." Obviously. However, a Christmas Island source, who wisely declined to be named, but who would no doubt be uncovered by Google's information monopoly after they build a giant data center, and would suffer appropriately, said Google had requested a long-term energy supply deal for a 7-megawatt data center using diesel and renewable power. And Australia's Department of Infrastructure confirmed Google's proposal was to establish a data center on Christmas Island and included plans to connect the island to Darwin via subsea cable. So, being lied to by an information superpower seems like a good way to start this relationship. Very normal. Some anti-war protesters were fearful of the impact on tourism, while business people are hopeful increased defense activity will boost the economy. Because look how much having a US Army base in the NT has given that place a booming economy. It's undeniable logic. I mean, look at it. It's a powerhouse. Darwin is Australia's most neglected capital city, and this is my personal conspiracy theory. I suspect that it's because the American armies are based out there. Hear me out. They don't want development because they don't want people moving out there, because they don't want people getting all up in their war and spying business. It's less a city and more a geographically large do not disturb sign. The government is very excited about this big new facility though. A new national AI capability plan to be unveiled by Industry Minister Tim Ayres, which is expected to include new measures to encourage the likes of Google and OpenAI to conduct AI training locally, which will be perfect for the government's new AI bullying platform. There are concerns about the amount of power the totally not at all a data center will draw, and that local capacity will be strained, especially if the island's detention center for asylum seekers or a shuttered resort were to reopen, which, due to the near inevitable reopening of refugee detention in our Pacific territories and neighbours, Google's arrival will bolster the case for switching to renewable energy, which would be cheaper than importing diesel, you see. So, if you think about it, this is good news. While local island neighbour Kiribati might be lost to the waves forever, Google isn't going to spend all of this money on a totally not a data center only to lose it to the waves. So the future is renewable energy on Christmas Island. What a good time. And that's all it took, was building a giant data center and giving in to the business interests of one of the largest information monopolies on the planet. Man, imagine what we could achieve if we gave everything over to business. The PM said that it was an exciting time for Australian international relations and was excited to see Christmas Island finally being used for something other than horrifying PR disasters. They will not let the local crab population die, do you hear me? They're not going to do it. Even if the waves rise a little bit, that's actually good for the crabs, as they need to actually make it all the way to the ocean in order to spawn in the first place. So if the waves from climate change come closer, if they rise higher and come up the beach a little bit more, closer to their forest home, that means less of them will die on the journey to or back from spawning. So that's a good work-life balance for these crustaceans. It's something that we should all be proud of. You guys are always so focused on the negatives. I don't know what's wrong with you. I need you to take a moment to consider the benefits of some light climate change and storing all that AI slop that you love to produce and put online so often. And finally, it is pat down news! Melbourne has entered its villain era, as it has not only introduced new warrantless search powers for police for the next 6 months, but has also introduced adult time for adult crime for children. Now, in regards to the new pat-down powers, according to police, it'll be like a random breath test, in that a random selection of people using a thoroughfare by foot or by car would be subjected to a pat-down search without a warrant or reasonable suspicion at any time across inner Melbourne over the next 6 months. And I will say, for those who need it to be said, these are not alike. Driving and walking are not the same thing, and a pat-down is far more invasive than a breath test. They certainly aren't the same unless you need a license to walk now. Not to mention, as of November 2023, being intoxicated in public is no longer a criminal offence. I have to suspect that they're not patting down businessmen leaving PwC or 85-year-old grandmas, and if they aren't, then upsettingly, this is not as random as they make it seem. Most likely this will be males aged somewhere between 13 to 25, and that they will be black. If you fit all three of these criteria, I believe you're getting a certificate from the police that says I was randomly racially discriminated against and all I got was this lousy pat down. The police insisted that the searches will be totally random and completely unbiased. After all, some of the African kids who get stopped will be wearing dark hoodies or clothes, and some will be wearing bright hoodies or clothes. And you won't know which one it is until they stop you. Completely random, as promised. It's like a racist Kinder Surprise where the toy is sadness every single time, which is great! Because we all remember the last time that there was this sort of public outrage over supposed growth of crime in Melbourne, when the papers and the politicians insisted that we were under siege, not by crime, but by teenage Sudanese kids eating at Chadstone. Fortunately, there wasn't a report just last week that showed police are facing accusations of racial profiling after data shows Aboriginal, African, Middle Eastern and Pacific Island communities are disproportionately targeted in searches, so no need to worry about that happening over and over and over again for the next 6 months. It certainly wouldn't. There's no evidence. There's none. And there certainly isn't any research based on data obtained from Victoria Police under their Freedom of Information laws, which didn't find people perceived by police to be Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander were 15 times more likely to be searched than white people in 2024, despite being less likely to be found with prohibited items. That's never happened. So I guess Melbourne's minority communities won't be preparing for 6 months of the most predictable random months in history. If these stats are anything to go by that don't exist, this 6-month period is mostly going to be 6 months of cops frisking the cast of Heartbreak High, allegedly. CBD residents have been encouraged to leave home 15 minutes earlier to allow extra time for random mandatory freedom checks. Police and politicians say the only people who are worried are those who have ever been searched by a cop before or have ever had to deal with VicPol in any way whatsoever. Victoria Police have made some assurances. Melbourne, so listen in, lean in close. 1, that the pat-downs will be conducted with all the sensitivity and nuance that police and PSOs are famous for. And 2, these warrantless pat-downs won't be racially targeted, just racially experienced, at a rate of 15 times higher than white people. Jacinta Allen said that the warrantless pat-down powers that will last until May 2026 are consistent with Victoria Police's plan to increase police visibility and reduce serious and violent crimes by 5% each year. Which is bold, because historically, the only thing police have ever reduced by 5% each year is their own public trust rating. Going on to say that the pat-down powers are needed to restore public safety and will stop violence, though experts say historical evidence suggests violence often comes from police, meaning that they'll put the entire CBD in the direct line of the worst public threat that there could possibly be, a cop with unchecked power. Well, think about it. In trying to achieve these goals, if we drive out the population of Melbourne, then statistically there will be less people around to either commit crime or be the victim of it. Yeah? See where I'm going with this? So inevitably there will be less crime. So when the population is only cops and PSOs, they can spend all of their days patting each other down to meet their KPIs. I'm sure they'll love that. The old, we're only doing this for your own good excuse is fine when you're convincing a child to go to bed early or, to take their medicine, but when it's an unasked for 6-month free trial of fascism light, it just doesn't fly. Expanding the powers of PSOs may, however, cause delays to their main job, standing around in groups of 4 or 5 intimidating children while ignoring actual crime. And they have issued what they call a fair warning that these warrantless pat-down powers will make PSOs even more unsufferable than usual for the next 6 months. All this is very reminiscent of the security theatre that is on display at airports. And honestly, the only benefit of the cost of living crisis was that I was taking less planes, so I didn't have to deal with airport security as often. But why should the cost of living crisis rob us all of the rich cultural experience of going to an airport? It shouldn't. It absolutely shouldn't. So Melbourne's new random pat-downs will actively recreate an authentic airport experience vibe for those of us who can no longer afford to take holidays. How fun for us! If the next 6 months transforms the city into the same experience as visiting the airport security-wise, I'd be keeping an eye on the cost of fast food and sandwiches. Look, if they get the impression that the CBD is now an airport, we're going to see them truly get fucked, right? The prices are going to skyrocket. At least when we're robbed by a mugger, they don't pretend that they're doing the right thing and that this is for our own safety. It's a much more honest relationship and I really appreciate it. That's the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, guys, or else the end of the main podcast. Thank you so much for hanging around. If you made it all the way to the end, whether you did it intentionally or you fell asleep, either way, your ears are welcome. If you'd like some more of this, please do join up to the Patreon and go check out the bonus stories. Today's bonus story is all about white Australian news, so that should be a fun one for you. Let's see what the white Australians are up to this time. If you have enjoyed it and you think you know somebody else who will enjoy this sort of thing, please do send them my way. Do come out to one of my live shows. Remember, I'll be in Bendigo, Adelaide, Melbourne, and wherever else I lock in for the rest of the year. Thank you so much for your time. Look after yourselves out there, and goodbye.